Good, sir. Folks, we're going to bring our March 8th meeting to order. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator.
Here.
Trustee Jerome. Trustee Kenny.
Present.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Trustee Whitehouse.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson. Mayor Hammond.
Here. Any amendments to the agenda that we need to be aware of tonight? Anyone? No? Okay. Conflicts of interest that we want to bring up?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, we'll open this up now. This is a public comment portion of the meeting tonight. Individuals wishing to come up and speak about something that's not on the agenda, come on up to the podium, state your name and your address, register it. And we give you 3 minutes to talk about something that's not on the agenda. And please try to keep it to 3. We've got quite a few people here. And if there's something that we can do, we'll take notes and we'll try to get back to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and go.
Sherelle Teets, 4525 Ingalls Drive. For
Sherelle, can you speak in the microphone, please? Yeah, thanks.
Hello. I don't know if that's any better. For the public comment section, I'm kind of side railing to a concern that was brought to my attention at the County Commissioners Wellington community meeting. I have sent all of the trustees photos to kind of use as reference when I speak about it. I also know Gail did show up tonight, so she can also speak about how the farmers are being affected on Highway 1 and County Road 9. So this is the planned roundabout that's going in at 62E and Highway 1. And also a discussion at the Planning Commission about a possible one on 64 that bottlenecks at Washington. So there's 2 dynamics to this. One, the difficulties they're facing now without that roundabout in as they transition over to County Road 64, which is Washington, the photos in there. They can't get their equipment through. The sidewalk is way too narrow. So they've pretty much closed off any ability when their equipment sits so low to the ground. They have no clearance. They can't just lift up a wheel and keep going. They have to pull up a whole bunch of equipment on the right-hand side if they're driving to actually utilize any of this. So the downfall to that is last year during beet season and harvest season, you guys closed down Highway 1. And they could not access the equipment that they actually had to the weigh scales on. So they were sent on a roundabout to 62. The downfall with that is right about Bee Lake. There is a really narrow bridge. So they couldn't take their farming equipment through it in general. So that is definitely something that I'm asking after getting to go on a ride-on with Gail and experience what they actually are seeing. It's a huge thing, and farmers have a right to farm here. So, and you cannot cut off those access points. And this roundabout is a 17-foot diameter roundabout. You can't get a combine through that. So you pretty much can't get any farm equipment, even if you put an apron on. I have done a lot of reading on it, and it's a 20-foot span on those combines. You also face issues where pedestrians are going to be going to school. Farmers' equipment is going to be taking up that entire road. So if you have bicyclists going to school, they're not going to be able to access it. So that's my comments.
Right,
thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll see your email later too.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Gail Meisner. I live on 10565 North County Road 9, which is about, it's about 2.5 miles north of the school. So anyway, one of the things she was talking about when you're headed south on County Road 64, they put a curb there, and the farmers, what they're doing now, they're dropping their wheels off into the shoulder in order to not take up the entire road. When you get to that, where they put the sidewalk and the curb in, they cannot do that. And also there are tons of bicycles on that road. So they have this bottleneck that they take the entire road. And my farmer going home, he lives south at the next curve. He had a lady pull out of the housing development there, not paying attention. And he had to take the entire road because it's 20 foot wide. And even worse are their mulchers, which they use in the fall, they use in the spring, April, May. They come up a little ways, but not very high. And they are 20 foot wide also. So, and the other problem, even when they're able to drop their tire off, when they have like the beet harvester, they have a 10-foot auger that is up here. So whenever there's a line pole, they have to go out in the road or any kind of pole on the side, any kind of road sign or anything. They have to pull in the middle of the road to miss it. So it's very, very difficult. Also, like she was saying, we've had beet harvest the entire month of October and first part of November. They have closed the road the last 2 years. And these semis cannot get there with the beets. And they cannot go on the bridge on County Road 60 because it doesn't have the weight allowance and it's too narrow. So they cannot go through, they can go through town with the semis, but they cannot go through town with the equipment. So County Road 9 has to be accessible for these guys that are going to the dairy, that are going to the heifer authority. They haul silage every morning, every afternoon, year round. So this is a real problem. And the roundabout makes it even more difficult. And my farmer says, why can't we leave it like it is? They finally fixed it where we can get through that intersection now. So my question is, are they going to close the curve completely off? Is that the plan? The curve from Wellington? You don't know? Okay, because you're going to have your biggest traffic in the morning when kids are going to school, probably around 7 to 8 to 9. You're going to have all your people going to Fort Collins to work at the same time. And if you run all those down a roundabout and they hit all that traffic, because I don't know if anyone has ever went to the River of Life Church and just sat in the parking lot and looked at the number of cars that go to Fort Collins that do not stay here. It's astronomical. And if you want to run all those down to a roundabout during school hours, during trying to get to work, people are going to be so frustrated.
Got it.
Okay. So anyway, the other thing would be maybe a stoplight.
We're getting on our free limits, but
okay.
If there's anything quick that you can add.
Just what about a stoplight there with an electric eye?
An extensive design process.
Right,
there's
right.
There's going to be times to do this.
Right, right. Okay.
I'm glad you brought it up because it's on our radar very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Steve Sarno. My address is 459 East County Road 66. I'm here to give you a real broad overview of a project that we're very excited about. I've been a volunteer with the food bank for a number of years. The food bank has been functioning here in town for 40 years. Recently, we have found we've not only outgrown ourselves, but we're just not serving the community as efficiently as we'd like. We originally were going to look at a building to house just a food and clothing pantry. And after the suggestion of Patty to tour a facility in Loveland called House of Neighborly Services, we came back with a whole different concept. And that is not only have a food and clothing pantry, but to offer a number of nonprofit services to people in the community that so badly need it, but can't get to Fort Collins or whatever, car issues, transportation, family work. So we're taking that concept and bringing it here. We're proceeding. We're excited. I'll leave you a copy of what we've got. It's going to be the lot just south of Zion Lutheran Church. We're a separate 501c3, so we'll be totally on our own, nonprofit. The biggest asset, I think, will be able to offer things that people just can't get. We've already got a commitment from Larimer County Human Health Services to have a physical presence here, also with Summit Stone, if you're familiar with that. Some of these services, particularly in mental health and counseling, that are so needed. And we just think it's going to be great for the community and the region. If you have any doubts about how important this is, I'm sure Patty could certainly fix you up with some both elected, non-elected officials in Loveland to find out how big of an asset this is, just not to Wellington, but the entire region. Right. So we're real close to We've hired Meg Larson to do our website. We've got this case statement. We're very close with the plans. When we get those, we'll obviously, take them to the town, planning, zoning, and work with Cody. I've already worked with Ewert Fire Department some to get a general view of what we'll, need to have requirements. And very excited. I think, and the main reason now is to just give you a broad overview, just so that you know what's coming down. If you look at the rendering and the picture that I'll leave you, it's not exactly, it's very close to what we're going to have. Looks a lot like what you're building, you're just completed, very, very similar. So if you have any questions moving forward, most people know how to get a hold of me, and we'd be happy to answer any questions, myself or Richard Bacon, that's also very involved. So we're excited to bring this, and I'd be really surprised if you didn't think that this is going to be a tremendous asset to the community in the region. So thank you, and I'll leave these. Thumbs up, Steve. Thanks. You bet. Okay. You got one.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Craig Johnson, 7985 Pheasant Run, but previously 8410 Three Silos. I'm here to voice support for the roundabout. I have lived in this community for 16 years, and I previously lived at 8410 Three Silos for 12 of those years and drove through that intersection almost daily. Now, granted, it is much more things in that vicinity than there was previously, but looking at towards the school, I've been very much in support of that school going in, because I will have children attending that school, the plan for at least the next 15 years, because I have children one that is not yet in school, but will be attending that school. So my children will be driving that intersection on a daily basis, starting not next year, because she won't drive yet, but the following year. And so I voiced my support for the roundabout, mostly because the roundabouts have been proven to be very safe and effective, more safe and effective for moving traffic through those types of intersections versus a four-way stop, mainly because you are dealing with a single point of entry and you're only looking for a single car coming at you rather than three different ways and having to pay attention more. So having a current fairly new driver, and we'll have new drivers in the very near future, I voice my support that them getting to school and getting to where they need to be safely, a roundabout is the absolute best thing we could put at that particular location. And it is something that, while I definitely do not discount what we've heard previously of making sure that our farm community can be supported, we need to find a solution so they can be supported while still allowing our children to be able to be as safe as possible getting to school, so that I don't have to worry that they are going to have a problem that as they go through that, but hopefully they will be very safe as they go through that. Thank you very much.
I didn't catch your first name, I'm sorry.
Craig.
Craig, thanks.
Anyone else?
Hello, Jessie Andreen from Harvest Village neighborhood. I just wanted to ask you guys if it was possible to maybe get some print material out to all of our residents about the upcoming election. I've talked to so many people that don't even know that we have one coming up. And so I also wondered if it's a possibility to have like a monthly newsletter that we could send out to our residents, just with maybe like the agenda items that are coming out with different boards for the month. I know that that's a lot of money, but I feel like it's really necessary too. So, and then I also had a question about when the ballots are coming out for our town. So I thought that they were available on the 14th of March, but I've heard now it's the 16th. So I was just curious because I know there's kind of confusion with that as well. So just wanted to ask.
Yes, please.
So the ballots can begin to go out on March 14th. Our printer has targeted March 16th, but it's not a guarantee. There could be things that come up that fluctuate that date. They will go out between March 14th and March 21st.
Okay. So it's just depending.
Website, right?
Yes.
Did see that. I thought when candidates signed up, it was like a for sure date on March 14th. So I just asked because on a lot of flyers that have come out from the candidates, it says March 14th.
March 14th is the first day that ballots can be mailed out.
Okay, but we're just not sure when they're going to be out for
Exactly.
sure.
They
Okay.
have a little bit of a window to
Okay.
get those out. And it's, yeah, statutorily, we have to have them out between 22 days and 15 days prior to the election.
Okay, that makes sense.
You got Mayor Pro Tem's here in the record. Okay. Thank you, Janine. Appreciate it. Jesse?
You like combined with two names.
Got it.
Jesse Andrew, yeah.
Got it.
Lisa Cholet, 7424 Homestretch Drive. So I sat in on the CAC meeting last week, this week, I don't know. All the days are running together. And I wanted to voice some concern. I know that they plan the 4th of July, but ultimately it's a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. So in talking to a lot of the business owners here on Main Street and even some of the business owners going down the frontage road to the south, I know there's a lot of talk of moving the parade off of Main Street. I just want to put that on your radar. I feel like it probably already is, but I want to emphasize how important it is that we try to get constructive. If maybe you guys can help or give a little nudge, keep it on Cleveland, because those businesses, that's tax dollars that come in from all the people that come to visit our community. Those businesses are losing money. The restaurants, that's a huge hit. It's not just the profit they didn't make, but it's all of the money that they spent to serve the people that come and visit our town. And it hurts them. And the tax dollars that aren't made hurt this town. We need every dollar, and we need to really lean into figuring out a great solution that keeps the parade on Cleveland. I don't typically have a big opinion about this, but I just hate to see these businesses be hurt by something that our town is most known for outside of Wellington. So I don't know what you guys can do, or if you can help come up with some creative solutions. But I feel like they kind of need a hand a little bit. I know the fire department and the police department are coming up with some alternate parade routes. But ultimately, I think it just needs to maybe expand or something creative. But this is a problem that might need a few more heads on it. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Lisa.
You bet. Sorry, let me just step to the side.
Lowry Moyer, 3814 Harrison Avenue. I wasn't going to speak, but I was so moved, and I just want to pledge my public support for the Community Services Center and let you know that if there's anything that I can do to help you, this is exactly the type of program that our community needs to bring those basic needs and resources to the community. And so I think we really need to look forward to this and do everything we can to support it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Okay. Close the public portion of this meeting for the non-agenda items. We'll be coming back to that, I'm sure, as other things.
Mayor Hammond,
Yes.
can I just make a couple quick comments? Because the question about CAC, I will be bringing up my board report with some asks to the board. So that will be discussed at the end of our meeting. So I just wanted to get that out there. And then we do have a town newsletter currently that is electronic that does go out. You can find the information on that on the website. So I just wanted to share those two quick things.
You got something later on.
Yes, in my board report, I will bring up the discussion about 4th of July because we are seeking some input from the Board of Trustees in regards to the parade. So.
All right. Look forward to hearing it. Okay, we got a presentation tonight right off the bat. And this is a Colorado Open Records request, CORA. This is a presentation by Krystal. Who's going to tell us what that means. Okay, this might be important to listen to.
Thank you, Mayor and Trustees. Krystal Eucker, the Town Clerk. So we've thrown around CORA requests and wanted to just give you guys some basic information on what CORA is. So CORA is the Colorado Open Records Act that allows public records to be open for inspection at reasonable times unless there's other state statutes that prohibit those records from being inspected by the residents. This facilitates open government as well as provides transparency and accountability for citizens. So what are public records? Public records are any writings that are made, maintained, or kept by the municipality for governmental use. Those writings can include books, papers, maps, photographs, recordings, and any other documentary materials. So we receive requests for records, but we also receive requests for information, and those are actually two completely separate items. The difference in that is a request for information could be something like, what is the zoning for a particular property, instead of requesting the zoning map. So there's sometimes communication that goes back and forth between the requester to make sure that they know what records they are actually requesting instead of the information that they're requesting. And with that, the town actually does not need to create a record for somebody that submits a request for records. Something like that could include if somebody asks for how much money the town has received over the past 5 years in grant funding, we wouldn't need to create a spreadsheet that has all that information lined out for them. We could provide them the past records that we have on file. They would have to probably sift through those to find the information they're looking for, but we don't need to create a new record to provide them to fulfill that request for them. So there are some timeframes that are in place in state statute as far as how quickly we respond to records requests. The reasonable time is 3 days or less. There are circumstances when we can send an extension to the requester if we have a request that is a large amount of records, or it's going to take a lot of time to retrieve those records. But that extension cannot exceed 7 days. The town of Wellington does charge for various records. One piece, the photographing or copying of records, sometimes we get requests for plans. So we have to send those out for large format scanning. Sorry, stumbling over words tonight. So we pass that cost on to the requester to get those documents scanned at a different facility. Research and retrieval of records. There are times when it can take more staff time to review documents that have been requested or find those documents for the requester. Staff does not charge for the first hour of time we spent gathering those records for the requester, but any time after that is charged to the requester. We usually require a 50% down payment on that before we start that process, and then the balance is due when those records are released. So not all records that are maintained by the municipality are subject to CORA. Some of those items include personnel files, reference letters, trade secrets and confidential commercial information, names, addresses, phone numbers, and public utility customers, executive session material, and deliberative process privileged records. So we wanted to just give you an overview of what the CORA requests are. We have, sometimes there's a lot of requests that comes through. Sometimes there's a lot of time in between when those requests come through. So we wanted to give you the option if you'd like to have a report on what records are being requested from the town, how often they are, our response times, for you guys to have that information, if that's something that'll be useful to you guys.
You like to see it?
I think it's a good idea if we've got citizens requesting information on things, and maybe it's just a good note to us is, hey, maybe this is something that we as a board need to have an update on, or maybe can bring back up. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I would concur. I've heard that there have been a number of requests recently. I'm just trying, this might give us a sense of what people are questioning about. Like, I don't understand. And so maybe that helps us in some way too. So I'd be supportive of having some report.
Okay.
I would agree with Trustee Whitehouse. I think it would give us a good measurement on what people are curious about and need more information or clarification on.
Yeah, right. I think you got thumbs up. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And let us know if you're getting ones that are requiring a lot of time too.
Will do. Do you guys prefer that quarterly or monthly?
Well, just out of curiosity, how much time is it going to take you to put together a report about your time?
Exactly.
That won't take long.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Quarterly would be fine, I think.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. This is the meeting minutes from January 25th, 2022, regular meeting minutes. Is there anything that we need to know about these or change this time? Okay, then can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 25th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Get a roll call, please.
Gator,
Yes.
Trustee Kenny. Yes. Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay, first action item. We're going to talk about the land use code. This is a revised draft. This is more of a presentation than anything else. It will be open up for public comment afterwards, but this is to get there's information everybody needs to know. We got a major work session coming up on it in another week, and then we'll be looking at it again in another week after that. Got it.
Those microphones, right? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good evening, Cody Bird.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
This is a presentation, so we're not taking, it's under action items. We're not taking any action on this evening.
Correct. There's no formal action. The reason we put it under action items is because there was a desire to allow public comments. And so presentation didn't feel like the right fit. So we moved it to action items.
Thank you.
Of course. Cody Bird, I'm the town's planning director. Thanks for the introduction on this topic, Mayor. We are presenting the second draft, the revised draft of the land use code updates. I want to provide a little bit of background information. I've given this presentation last night at the Planning Commission meeting. So if I sound repetitive to some of you, I'm sure that's why. But I wanted to give just a little bit of brief background on the process for updating town regulations for land uses. This began near to 3 years ago when we began budget process to authorize funds for contracting with consultants to update our comprehensive plan. And working through our comprehensive plan update process, that resulted in the Planning Commission adopting the town's comprehensive plan in August 2nd of 2021. And since that time, the Planning Commission has been working every month in work sessions to draft the land use regulations that would help to implement the vision of the comprehensive plan, as well as update our codes to kind of modernize them. Just for reference, the last time our land use code was updated significantly was in 2007. And at that time, the town adopted the Colorado State Model Zoning Code. And if any of you are familiar with model codes, it doesn't really address the needs at a local level. And there were very few changes made when that adoption took place. There have been a few incremental changes that happened since then, but the code really hasn't been modernized to address current technologies, emerging technologies. Sign codes have been litigated time and time again at the Supreme Court level, and there's very clear guidance on what is acceptable at a local municipal level. We have attempted to, with this major update to the land use code, bring our town's code up to a modern standard and address those new technologies, changes in development practices, changes in land use patterns, and sign codes and all of our other legal obligations at state law and otherwise. So this has been a pretty big effort. And again, I go back to the Planning Commission really started diving into these subject matters in our work sessions every month since September. in your packet, I included kind of a table of when those sections were rolled out for consideration, when that draft language was presented for the first time. And then a couple of them came back a second or third time even to address those sensitive subject matters. So the Planning Commission has been working on this for an awful long time. And we really feel that we've got a solid product that supports the town's needs for the long term here with a modern code. I wanted to highlight a couple of those sections in the code that I should go back a step and say we have been accepting public comments. The first draft of the land use code was put out at the beginning of February. It's been in a board packet. It's been on the website. It's been available. We've got coasters and table tents around town with QR codes directing folks to where to find the land use code. And we've got Mahela Henschel, our public information coordinator, who's been helping with social media posts to help spread the word. So we have received some public comments. A summary of the public comments that were received as of midweek last week are included in your agenda packet. And we kind of boiled those comments down into three themes that we were seeing the most comments on. The first of those was related to land use patterns in the C2 zone and R4 zone. That's along Harrison and McKinley Avenues primarily. There was a lot of comments about making sure we found the right mix of land uses, preserving the residential character and culture of those corridors. And that theme was prevalent in the comprehensive plan discussions as well. So that was a prevalent theme in the public comments that we received in writing prior to this agenda packet going out. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing last night, and that same theme came up. The Planning Commission recommended that the properties along Harrison and McKinley Avenues, rather than looking at some other alternatives that would incentivize or encourage a broader range of commercial uses, the Planning Commission recommended that those properties on those two corridors be zoned R4, which is our downtown neighborhood zone district. So that the Planning Commission felt and staff feels that would do the best job of preserving the residential character and culture of those historic neighborhoods. The second theme that we heard with the public comments was relative to our proposed landscape standards. The landscape standards, one of the big questions that kind of was coming up was, are homeowners going to have to follow these rules and choose this tree or plant it in this way and be limited on what they can do with their residential landscapes? And the short answer is no. What we've done to update the revised code here was to provide clarity in an applicability, that was hard for me to say for some reason, applicability section that's identifying that those landscape standards are applicable to new commercial landscapes and new multifamily landscapes. We would also point out that we have developed a design landscape and irrigation design manual that is a supplement to the code. That manual is intended to help with water conservation, and that was based off a public survey that was put out where the community identified some landscape typologies that were more desirable, and the number one choice was actually a very xeric native species with bright colors, flowers, shrubs, that's low water use. So that was what that manual was geared towards, was water conservation. The third theme that we saw comments on in this first round of public comments was the sign code. We heard pretty clearly that we had to start with somewhere with the proposed number of signs, sizes, limitations. And we heard very clearly that we needed some more flexibility for that. So at the Planning Commission meeting last night, the commission recommended increasing the number of signs allowed, increasing the size of signs allowed in certain districts, and including provisions for signs on Main Street for our business community that could be displayed year round, subject only to bringing them inside at night so they don't get stolen, blown away, what have you. And then additionally, we added a component that allows an additional up to 3 signs, up to 6 square feet each on residential properties during an event. So it could be elections, could be ceremonies like weddings, high school graduations, et cetera. Up to 3 signs, 3 times a year for 70 days apiece. So that is intended to provide additional flexibility to not infringe on freedom of speech and allow people to have their signs displayed for whatever purpose. So those were, excuse me, some of the highlights. And if I could real quick jump over, last night, the Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing on the land use code. And following the close of public comments, the Planning Commission deliberated some of these topics. They ended up ultimately voted to forward a recommendation of approval to the Board of Trustees. And it was subject to making a few revisions. And I wanted to highlight what those revisions were so that the board understands that that's not in your packet because the packet went out before that meeting took place. But I wanted to highlight the substantive changes the Planning Commission did recommend. So the first was to allow for, this was a good discussion last night too, by the way, some good public comments and discussion from the Planning Commission. But it was identified that existing residential homes in the C2 zone district, under the original draft code, if those became damaged or destroyed, that they wouldn't be allowed to be rebuilt as residential homes. And after quite a bit of discussion, the Planning Commission had recommended that any existing home that's legally existing as of the date of the code change would still be allowed to rebuild as residential. And so we will incorporate that into the code in the next round of revisions. Similarly, the Planning Commission made the same recommendation for religious land uses in the C2 zone district. There's a number of religious land uses existing, but the Planning Commission felt it'd be very important to allow them to rebuild as religious land uses if they did happen to become damaged by fire, wind, flood, what have you. So that was the first significant recommendation for revision that we will make. The second was to remove the land use category pawn shop from the C2, the commercial core, that's the Cleveland Avenue corridor. They encouraged removing that from the C2, including it in the light industrial district and including a buffer separation between similar land uses. So they wouldn't have pawn shops, taking up an entire corridor of our community.
Mr. Bird, point of information, could you, I'm not sure, we've been throwing around these terms like C2. Could you clarify for folks what exactly you're meaning when you say that, please?
Absolutely, and thank you. I've obviously been through this code so many times. These terms are second nature to me, but great question. And so the C2 is referring to a zone district category. We've identified a number of land use categories color-coded on the map on the wall over here. And those categories are generally broken down into low density residential, medium density residential. The C2 is downtown commercial core, which is our Cleveland Avenue corridor. The C3 is our highway commercial zone district, which is generally geared more towards automobile oriented uses. And then we have industrial and light industrial categories. And we also have a public land use category, which would be like town spaces like parks, town halls, other public facilities. So when I refer to C2, I'm referring to the commercial corridor along Cleveland. R4 was the other category I mentioned earlier, and that's for our downtown neighborhoods, which is generally Washington to Jefferson, 6th to the railroad. Thank you for the question. So going back to the second revision the Planning Commission recommended was removing the pawn shop from the C2 downtown commercial corridor, allowing it in light industrial and creating a separation buffer so that we don't have too many pawn shops locating too close together where it would dominate a neighborhood with a single land use. The third recommendation that the Planning Commission made for revision was to, in the sign code, allow within the downtown commercial, the community commercial, the highway commercial, and the industrial and light industrial zones to allow up to a total of 32 square feet of signage for temporary signs per street frontage. So a corner lot could have up to 32 square feet of signage on both sides of their business to help with advertising for events on a temporary basis. So banners, yard signs, things of that nature, but not permanent signs that have a different category and a different table in the code. But the desire was to allow additional flexibility for businesses to find the right fit for advertisements for their business. the fourth one was a clarification. This was the fourth revision that the Planning Commission recommended to the draft code in your packet, was to remove from the procedures table in the procedures chapter. There was a technical error on what the draft had a review by the Planning Commission on a variance case. And from a legal standpoint, the Planning Commission doesn't ever receive a variance request. Variances go to the Board of Adjustments. And that was a significant enough change because of the technical procedures that the Planning Commission specifically wanted to make that recommendation. And the fifth revision the Planning Commission recommended was to allow either the Board of Trustees or the Planning Commission to initiate amendments to the code. In the draft, it had only said Planning Commission, and that was not the intent, but it was important designation to clarify that both the Planning Commission or the Board of Trustees can initiate amendments to the land use code. And the last recommendation, which staff encouraged and supports, and we would continue to support, we know that there's still some typographical errors, formatting issues that we need to clean up in this document. We will continue to do that. Once we get all the revisions that are tracked cleaned up, we'll have to readjust spacing, formatting, make sure all the section breaks make sense. And we also asked for a little bit of grace. Our engineering public works department also noticed that we've got some discrepancies between what's in the development standards on certain engineering practices and what our town engineers use for standards. And we need to make sure that those are coordinated in alignment. So we will expect some changes on that particular topic, but they're not substantive changes that the Planning Commission or the Board of Trustees would typically be involved in any decisions. It's more of a making sure that our documents are working coordinated so that we get the end result, which is ultimately our engineering standards. And then the last one is legal clarity and effect. We still have our consultant legal team doing a scrub of this document to make sure that all the proper references are made and that the state statutes are being followed. And our town attorney is continuing review as well, as including all the revisions that we've made. So we just asked for a little bit of grace on kind of document cleanup and these final technical aspects regarding standards and legalities. So I wanted to highlight those. I'm sorry that took a little longer than maybe we had planned, but I wanted to make sure that we got those substantive comments included in the Board of Trustees conversation tonight so that the board members who aren't members of the Planning Commission, who hadn't heard that yet, had the information, and for all of our residents here in attendance and online.
Can I ask a quick question,
Yep.
Mayor Hammond? Can you give a little bit of backstory about, I can understand changing the zoning requirement for pawn shops, but can you explain the distancing requirement? And let me explain to you my curiosity. Why would we distance requirement any business? We have gas stations on all four corners and several coffee shops in a condensed area. Is there a specific reason why pawn shops are being targeted for distance requirements?
Yes, and so the reason is pawn shops is generally a larger category, which would include payday loans, check for cash businesses, pawn shops. It's exchanging goods or products for money, and they're holding something in return, waiting for that person to come back. And that's a very kind of specific type of land use that warrants that separation, because what we've seen in other communities throughout the country, if without that separation buffer, those businesses tend to locate close to each other because if you can't get your deal here, they won't meet you on your terms. You go next door and then you go next door. And so you get this pattern of land use where you have the same type of business all clustered in one neighborhood of town. And then that one neighborhood tends to suffer from having the same land use and no other variety. And that usually results in stigmas for those neighborhoods that kind of it's that side of town. And we don't want to have that side of town in Wellington.
Thank you. That helps explain why there would be a distance requirement.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can you circulate all that to us on our emails so we can have that for our work session?
Yeah, absolutely. Or I can certainly put it in the packet that goes out later this week as well.
We want to make sure we cover all that again. Okay.
Sure thing. We'll do.
Anyone else got any? All right, you want to continue or where are you at with
that? I guess I'll wrap it up with simply saying that that was the presentation. The draft land use code is in your packet. It's been on the website. We do expect to make a few more revisions. The Planning Commission forwards their recommendation of approval, which we will include in an upcoming Board of Trustees agenda packet for your public hearing, which is scheduled for March 22nd. I know you've got a work session on the 15th with the same topic. So there's still more opportunity to have discussions and make changes. We're still soliciting public comments. You can email Cody Bird at the Town of Wellington, or you can use our online comment form on our land use code project page of the town's website. But I'll simply wrap it up now and say that that's our presentation. I think the mayor wanted to allow some public comments. I'll stick around to be able to respond to any questions afterwards. Yeah. And no action tonight, yeah, just allowing public comment.
Work left to do, so that's good. I appreciate it, and it was a constructive meeting last night too. Okay, thank you very much. We can take public comment on this subject if you like. If anyone would like to come up and say some final thoughts, you know, you're more than welcome to come up. You know, respect the 3-minute rule, if you will. And we'll take notes if we don't have answers, and we've got a work session coming up, and you know, try to be as constructive as we can.
Christine Gator, downtown core. I think you guys changed religious land uses from conditional to permitted in C1. That was also should be added to the list.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, I noted that one too. That one is one of the legal review items, I believe. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Nice catch. Anyone else?
Sherelle Teets, 4525 Ingalls Drive. If you refer to section, and I know if you guys don't have it open right now, you can always look at it for the work session, but if you review the section 2.02-2, that will, if you could answer why public notification moved from 30 days to 15-day notification for public hearings on any land use changes, or I think annexation is also listed in that. Section 2.06 talks about the comprehensive plan and how it is linked to this document. Will you please read that plan and see the length in which you have to do to try and get this land code to change? Because it's pages long. So, and that is going to be at a cost of whomever is trying to change it. And I think honestly, at the end of the day, when you look at it, it shouldn't be someone's asking for permission to have to change something that may already be existing on the property. It's your property. So the extent of which you have to do it is excessive. And it also notes that it's only a recommendation to change, not that it's actually going to be changed. And then if you make note of the section that was discussed last night, so I actually did have a chance to reach back out to Michael Gregg, who actually tried to come here to build affordable housing for Wellington a while back and had a conversation. He needs his blueprint in R3 would need to be about 2,500 square feet to be able to still bring in homes at about 280,000 per home. He said the nice thing is these homes are not losing a lot of square footage as much as they turn into a 2-story with just a smaller plat. He had a really interesting study he had conducted by a third party for Berthoud, and it was actually a really good read. He's already sold 63 homes and they just started the development and not even a year ago. So he says, but something you would have to look at in order to bring affordable housing here was you have to look at a tiered schedule for the cost of building. So that would be if they're going to have a really small blueprint, the people moving into these homes are not people that have a bunch of kids. These are people that are newlyweds, senior citizens that just need a smaller home and footprint to live in. So it'd be an awesome thing to offer for housing for senior citizens, but he needs about 2,500 to still bring those competitive rates of the 280,000. Oh, I'm sorry. I can also make more comments at the work session. I just didn't know if you wanted those to kind of look at.
Closing statements?
Yes.
I would just ask that you guys take this seriously when you look at passing this. Since it's only been out since February, there's been so many edits that have already needed made to it that if people weren't paying attention, nobody would have caught it. These churches would have been written out of C2. So I think it's important.
Thanks.
Kathy White Dallas, 3405 Revere Court. I'd like to thank Cody and his staff and the Planning Commission for addressing, and in so many cases, actually making the changes that a lot of us have brought up over the last, well, more than a couple months, a long time. But there were still a couple things I just wanted to mention. In the part that's 1.06, it still says that the comprehensive plan is official policy. And we had never heard that it was official policy. It had always been presented as a vision, guidance, master plan. We never heard it was official policy. And that kind of makes it, you know, in stone. And there were a lot of problems with the comp plan that a lot of us backed off of, complaining about, because we were going to get, you know, some more say so in the land use plan. So I would feel real comfortable if that, it's just, I think in that one spot, if they could change it to official guidance or master plan or town vision or something a little bit less stony. Anyhow, I really, really appreciate the rezoning of Harrison and McKinley. That's going to make a lot of people happy, especially people that live there. And those of us who just think it's kind of cool to, you know, have a residential area right back. Yeah, just to not change Wellington. We moved to Wellington because we like Wellington the way it is. And to change it drastically is not really what we had in mind. My last thing, and I brought this up last night, was when they describe the sections of land use, whether it's warehouses or vet clinics or wireless facilities or nightclubs, they'll sometimes have a list of rules for those particular things. So I don't know anything about any of those, and there's no way planners can know all about all this stuff either. But it makes me very suspicious that the large animal vet clinic rules are so unrealistic that the best practices could be better. The rules about the noise and odor might be realistic for the conditional use zones, but they're unnecessary because they're zoned, the large animal clinics are only zoned in agriculture and in industrial. Well, there's already a lot of space, a lot of racket going on anyway, you know, and so those sort of things are, that seemed a little odd. And the minimum size of the lot is 1 acre, but that's too small for all the rules they have for setbacks. I mean, if you make 1 acre as fat as possible, it's 208 by 208 feet. And you can't have a 100-foot setback from every lot line, except for, you know, you have like one little, I don't know what, 8-foot square area in the middle to run a horse around in circles or to put a head catcher. I mean, it just made no sense. So anyhow, I'm just saying these rules would discourage somebody who wanted to start a large animal vet clinic on the outskirts of Wellington or in whatever industrial area, because it still is very much an agricultural area. I know lots of people in Weld County that come here to shop. They come here to get their car fixed or go to the accountant or something. So
got it.
That's all I got to say.
Got that one, Kathy.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. Okay, I didn't want to hold him up. Lowry Moyer, 3814 Harrison Avenue. I just want to speak to the affordable housing. I don't think that it is only for seniors. I think that we can look at our land use, yes, setbacks, smaller lot sizes, maybe 2 homes where you could have 3, but I don't want everyone to lose hope because it is possible for 4 and 5 bedrooms for larger families. And there are creative and innovative solutions to do this and partnerships that can make it happen. And I have seen this happen in developments of all different sizes with partnerships with all different types of developers. And it doesn't take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it happen. It takes one person that's committed to it to make it happen. And it takes people to get behind them that believe that people deserve the right to be stable and have a home that makes them secure. And it can happen. And I am happy and willing, no matter what happens this election, to do everything within my power to make sure that we see that here in Wellington.
Hang on 1 second. Can I ask Ms. Lowry a question real quick? So land use code restrictions is one of the #1 things that prevents affordable housing. You're a subject matter expert. Do you have any recommendations, or have you seen in your experience anything during these processes that we can take into consideration this evening to help prevent getting ourselves into a tough spot with affordable housing opportunities?
Yes. So my executive director sat on a task force for the city of Greeley, and they looked at their land use code and they realized that their lot requirements and the square footage they were requiring as a minimum for their housing was not conducive to the development of large scale communities for affordable housing. And you could, in fact, get more efficiency out of your land use by lowering those requirements and making variances project by project. So I think allowing the board to think in a case-by-case scenario when projects like these do present themselves would be advised. And then also looking at how you can optimize your land use, because I think, like I said before, we are not landlocked, not that anyone wants to encroach on any farmer's land, but that we have an opportunity here, because we are not landlocked, to make the best use and maximize the potential of our land to be able to serve every single person in this community. And I'm happy to talk to you further about that.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Sorry, I get really passionate about this.
It's not a bad thing.
Oh, I know.
Hi again, Lisa Cholet, 7424 Homestretch Drive. So I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what Lowry was just talking about. I have this lovely sketch as I was going through the land use code and the minimum lot size requirements and setback requirements. And my concern is for the R3 zone, which right now seems to lie quite a bit on the outer edges of town from what I was looking at. That's map's not right, is it? Anyway, so one of my concerns is that it's a minimum lot size of 3,000 square feet with a minimum width of 50 feet. A typical 2-car garage is 24 feet wide and 22 feet deep. You add it in all your setbacks, 7 feet on each side, which of course I wish were 10, but that's a whole other conversation. 20-foot minimum backyard, 20-foot minimum to the garage, 15-foot to the house. Calculating on your mean square footage of livable space, 288 square feet of livable space. That doesn't make sense. In the land use code, there's a whole provision, Cody pointed it out to me last night, in the planned unit development 2.18 section 0.4 paragraph C, that talks about this whole document governs everything except that they can ask for it to be different. Well, that's a lot of time and energy on something that already doesn't work. So I would encourage you to not change the side setbacks to make houses closer, but reduce the minimum square feet requirement is 864 square feet. And this is nowhere near that. That would have to be a 3-story house because it's 864 square feet above ground. So I think there's a lot of work left to be done on this. I know you guys wanted to finish what you started. I'm just going to ask you to really take your time on this because this is a guiding document. We don't want to have to go back and change it. It costs the town a lot of money, a lot of staff hours. We have a lot more things to do. So affordable homes is a thing. Fort Collins just adopted the new code, and I'll just give you a heads up. The 2021 code for the IECC energy will cost approximately $77,000 per house to meet that code, additional on top of what it already costs to build a house. We haven't adopted that code, thank God. Thank you, Cody. But at some point that may come down the pike. So we don't want to get to a point where we can only build 800,000 homes here. We want to keep it affordable. We want our kids to be able to buy houses here. Everybody needs to be able to start somewhere. And if there's nowhere to start, that's a problem. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public meeting on this part here right now. We got notes written down. Looking forward to the work session, Cody. Okay, hammering this out, all right? Okay, I think you took notes too, right? All right, good. We're gonna move on. We should get some final thoughts.
Yeah, Mr. Bird, if it's possible, if we could maybe have some visuals in addition to what's already available in here to kind of work through, kind of like whiteboard it on R3 for setbacks. I think it'd be great. And that would be a good review for everybody here as to how setbacks work and how that applies to properties in general. I think that would get everybody at a good baseline. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I did want to speak just briefly. I believe we're covering a lot of detail on this next Tuesday, so I'll have more comments there. I did want to thank staff for providing the summary of the public comments. I know that's something I specifically requested, so thank you for having those in the document. I did also want to just thank the Planning Commission for a lot of the suggested changes. I know we've been hearing about the downtown residences for quite some time. It's been a long time in coming, so it's very good to hear the suggestion to make those happen. The other piece too that I wanted to speak to is the residential homes and the religious land use in C2. And so I appreciate allowing to rebuild because my home is one of those homes that would not have been able to rebuild if it caught fire under the current code. But with our existing land use code, I wanted to make a recommendation that we not just put it as being able to rebuild, but our current land use code actually has a paragraph that says all existing legal residential uses in place as of January 1st, 2016 shall be considered conforming uses on the lots on which they exist. And so my request would be that we do that for both the religious land uses and residential homes in the C2 versus just saying they can rebuild, because there is a whole nother level of things that come in with non-conforming, such as the Board of Adjustments could kick us out of our house if we didn't meet certain things. So it's not just ability to rebuild, but actually there could be a situation where the town government, and like if I had to make major repairs on my home, I'd have to get approval from a public official. So I think that the solution is not just allow people to rebuild if it burns down, is that we should consider those existing residential uses as well as the religious land uses just be considered as conforming uses as long as it's on that property and hasn't changed. Obviously, when someone purchases that property, changes its use, that would go away because it would be a different use. But I think that that is the solution versus just allowing to rebuild, because there's a whole other host of things. And the non-conforming is nothing that was done as of the homeowners, right? I didn't do anything to my house that made it non-conforming. The town actually changed the policy. So that would be my request, is that's the route we go on that versus just allowing to rebuild.
Okay. You guys got anything on this side you want to add? We're going to move on. Thank you very much. Work session next week. Okay, item 2, action item. This is the authorize the execution of a contract for security fencing at the water and wastewater treatment plants.
Good evening. Nathan Ewert, engineer at the town. So we put out a bid to replace the fencing at the existing wastewater treatment plant, as well as expand the fencing at the water treatment plant. The intent here was to get this installed ahead of the upcoming projects that you may have heard about that are going to go on at both plants. A little bit of background, the current wastewater treatment plant fence. I've heard it referred to as a sheep fence. One contractor called it an elk fence. It's not a security fence. So the plan is to replace that entire fence with a 6-foot 3-strand barbed wire fence, bringing essentially that security fence up to current standards. The plan is also to expand the fencing to the 5 acres of land to the west that we currently own, and fence that in. That way the contractor can use it for staging. We also have a large excess dirt pile that's going to go over there. Rather than haul it off site, it's just going to be cheaper to stockpile it there for the time being. This project at the wastewater treatment plant is part of the 2022 town budget. It's GL number 21180-4090, and it was budgeted for $165,000. The water treatment plant is currently a 6-foot 3-strand barbed wire fence. The plan is to expand that fencing to include the additional 3.14 acres that we are going to be using to the west of the plant site. The fence will be installed again with 6-foot 3-strand barbed wire fence. The entire fence will not be complete under this project. There is some grading that needs to be completed to the north of the site. So the remainder of the fence will need to be part of that project. This is part of the 2022 town budget under GL 21180-4080, and the budgeted amount was $50,000. We did receive 5 bids on this project, 4 of which came in under budget, which is not something you say often these days. We reviewed bids for completeness, conformance with the requirements of the bid and specifications, as well as our project schedule, which is extremely critical right now. Staff is recommending to award the security fencing contract. It's just one contract for both projects to Black Eagle Fencing. I had a typo in there, but the recommendation is to award it to Black Eagle Fencing in the amount of $175,327.05, with a not to exceed amount of $50,000 for the water treatment plant portion and $165,000 for the wastewater treatment plant portion. At this point, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
Yep, so I did have a couple of questions. I know that one of the bids at Town and Country, you had highlighted in yellow saying that that was indicates a math error in the bid. So was the 155,759.15 the correct number, or was that the incorrect number?
I correct their numbers based off of the unit price.
Okay, so the corrected price was the 155. Yes, okay, correct. So was there a reason that staff felt that that was not an appropriate bid, because that was about $20,000 the cheapest bid that was given?
Correct. So when we review bids for conformance with the requirements of the RFP, they did not provide the required submittals. We went ahead and reached out to them and requested those submittals. We also had, when checking references, we had some concern about their ability to meet our schedule. I did not hear back from them for about a day and a half. So we went ahead and selected the next bid.
Okay, thank you. That helps. The other question I had is, if I'm understanding correctly, the amounts of the contract for Black Eagle for the water treatment plant is $38,890.36, and then for the wastewater is $136,436.69. Is there a reason that we're not requesting the not to exceed amount in the actual bid numbers?
The budgeted amount, you know, in the 2022 budget was the 165 and then the 50. If there is a change order, which I'm not anticipating, but you know, there's always that possibility that something was overlooked or something was missed and we needed added on. I wanted the ability to allow that without having to come back to the board. I understand, like, there's the purchasing policy is, you know, over 30,000, which, you know, in the case of the water treatment plant, we won't get to that amount. And I think the wastewater plant is like 28,005 is the difference.
Okay, I guess that just, I mean, we're obviously looking for funds anywhere we can. So I would personally prefer that if we do need to go above the contracted amounts, that especially in these funds, because I'm assuming these are coming out of these are not coming out of the general fund. The water portion will be coming out of the water fund. The wastewater will be coming out of the wastewater. And right now, every dollar in that fund is precious. So I really would prefer, if we're going to go over contract, that does come back to the Board of Trustees. So that would be the only other thing that I would add is I would prefer that we approve the amount for the contract. And then if there needs to be an adjustment, then that can be brought back to the board and why that needs to be adjusted. But otherwise, I prefer that we do the actual contract price. Those are the only two comments I had.
Other comments this side?
I have a question with the purchasing policy. If we go with, as Trustee Gator suggested, by just going to the actual amount as opposed to the sum of the two GL lines, under the current policy of a purchasing policy, does it have to come back to the board, or is that something Ms. Garcia and staff could address? Oh, no, it won't matter because we haven't approved the money.
We do abide by the purchasing policy, and if it's less than $30,000, I generally approve that administratively. And if we would need to have to come back for board approval, there could be problems with trying to get that project completed. I mean, you only meet every 2 weeks, the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. So it could cause some problems. And that's why we have that $30,000 threshold for me to be able to approve so we can keep moving those projects along.
So if there were needs or change orders, those would come to you before that being approved. Okay.
Correct. That would come to me. And we can also, I mean, I'd be more than happy to update the board if we receive change orders and things like that. So you're aware of the process.
I would prefer that because from that standpoint, I think that way you can at least reach out to us and let us know. And if we have major concerns, we can tell you that right there on the spot. So that would be my preference on that.
Sounds good. Interest of transparency. We will make it so.
This side?
Do we have permission in writing from North Pooter to install the fence at the water treatment plant?
Yeah, and the right sides and the area and all that.
What's that?
In the area, do we even know?
We currently, I might have to ask Bob that one. We have permission to do a lot of things over there. I don't know that I've seen the exact permission to do the fencing at this point.
Sorry, Nathan.
Sorry, Bob. One question.
Bob Gowling, Public Works Director. We have more of a verbal, unofficial verbal confirmation, but the purchase contract, the proposed purchase contract is on their board, the next board agenda tomorrow. So we anticipate being able to wrap this up in time to get official approval before we actually start this work. In fact, I would say that's a requirement.
What is the, can you tell us when is this scheduled to begin? Did I miss that in the packet?
The work, I believe the completion date for the wastewater treatment plant, because it's a little further ahead than the water plant, the wastewater is scheduled to be completed, I believe, the middle of May, and the water at the, these are literally like the end date is scheduled to be complete June 1st. I have actually, we talked with Black Eagle already about that schedule, and they actually provided us a fairly aggressive schedule, essentially taking 2 teams and sticking them at each plant. So it's going to get completed at the same time, which is promising because that just means it can get done a lot faster.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on that?
I guess regarding that question though, regardless of if we're permitted to do it or not, the work can't start until that happens, regardless of our approval of this spend, right? So
if they don't approve, we're not doing anything.
yeah, so I can't imagine that affects approving the costs for
conditional comment. It's really bad form to say you're going to go onto somebody's property and build something when you don't have their permission in a public meeting and then dedicate spending funds to that project. So I would be comfortable moving forward with the project as long as it's a conditional motion.
okay. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how that connected, but thank you for answering that for me.
There you go, procedures. Okay. Anything else? You're good? Okay, we'll let the public speak on this right now. If the public would like to talk about some fences, now's a good time to come up here. You have 3 minutes. See if we can answer something or not.
Kaylor Shosey, downtown Wellington. With the fence on the treatment facility, correct me if I'm wrong, we may be working on pursuing an exchange of land for water shares. So is it kind of throwing money away to propose a project that's not even going to cover the property that we would be acquiring in said deal?
I think the intention is to protect the water treatment plant and not necessarily to fence in the entire property.
Okay. And the fence now currently is not protecting it?
I believe with the expansion that they have in mind, it does not.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We wrote it down though. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public portion of that. Bring it back to the board for final thoughts and a motion.
So I just wanted to clarify with Ms. Garcia. So if I do put a motion forward to approve in the amounts of the contract, if there was a need for anything above that, in a change order, you're able to do that administratively, and then you can just let the board know about those changes. Okay, great. That's the only other question I had.
So I'll make a motion to approve and authorize the execution of the contract for the security fencing at the water and wastewater treatment plants, conditional to, at the water treatment plant, the approval from the North Pewter Irrigation Company at their regular board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Anything else, Dan?
It is on the board meeting for tomorrow morning, but this motion is to approve this award for this contract. And so I think a concern in putting that in the motion would be if
Okay, so conditional to their approval?
conditional to their approval, just don't put a date on it.
Okay, conditional to their approval with no date. Any questions to the amended motion?
Yes, I would just request for amended. I believe we do need to put a not to exceed onto that. I believe there has to be a number. I know the requested number was 165 and the 50,000. I would, I guess, seek to amend the amendment.
So the total amount
of
in
the
the award
contracts.
contract.
Yep, I'd like to move the not to exceed be the contract amounts of $38,890.36 for the water treatment plant and $136,436.69 for the wastewater treatment plant.
No. I'm seeing a discrepancy. Let's back up for a second. Trustee Kinney?
Maybe I understood the opposite, but my impression was that moving forward with the staff recommendation here, and then we would be alerted and notified if any change orders occurred. That was my understanding of it.
No, and so if the amount is over the contract amount, there doesn't have to be any action taken by the purchasing policy if we approve the higher amount. But if we approve the actual contract amounts, then within the purchasing policy, the town administrator is able to administratively make that change to increase the amount up to what is budgeted.
30,000.
She's able to up to 30, anything up to 30,000, which both of these projects would fall within that. And then she would inform the board if there were any changes that needed to be made to hit that.
That's right. That's right.
So that's why I'm requesting that we as a board approve the contract amount. And then if there's a change that needs to happen, the town administrator is able to do that under the policy of the town for purchasing. And then she will notify the board of any of those changes.
Okay, I'm ready. I got this.
Is it not the purpose of the not to exceed amount though?
Yes, and I'll get that in the motion. Okay, I would like to make a motion to authorize the execution of the contract for the security fencing at the water treatment plant conditional to approval at the North Pewter Irrigation Company meeting and approval of the wastewater treatment plant fencing project contract to not exceed $176,000.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
Trustee Kinney,
Yes.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay. I think this was our first one that we ever did. All right. We got all yeses. I'm sure we did it okay then.
Everybody's happy.
Okay.
I'm not happy.
Barbed wire fence. All right. Let's keep it right. Come on up, Vic. Where are you going in? Item 3. Okay, we got ordinance number 06-2022. Bear with me, I got to read this. This is the ordinance of the town of Wellington, Colorado, acting by and through the town of Wastewater Enterprise, approving the Green Project Reserve Loan from the Colorado Water Resource and Power Development Authority to finance wastewater related and providing it for payment and for the bond from the net revenue of the wastewater system. That's quite a bit to understand. Vic's going to try to walk us through that.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Victoria Runkle, Interim Finance Director. Thank you. Just trying to, pardon? Yeah, I am, but yes, I am. Hold on, sorry. Still the technology. Here I am. I'm in the meeting now. There, how's that? I'm waiting for it to pop up. Sorry, everyone at home. I am. Oh, I am. Okay.
Quiet as this room has been all night.
I'm sorry. Technology is. Ooh, something changed. There it is.
You're just gonna have to tell us when you want the screen.
Oh, okay.
We'll do that for you.
All right. I'm gonna. So this evening, 2 weeks ago, you approved the loan with the SRF, the same group of people, for what we're going to do is $48 million, and you approved the contract for the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. At that time, we told you, second screen, at that time, we told you that the state had a separate loan program guaranteed of 1.5% interest, and that we could, they actually said that we qualify for 3 million of that, of 1.5%, which will be less than whatever we borrow for. It's still a very, very good amount of interest rate. And so tonight you have to approve us going for that loan. So that's what you're doing. In the next slide, slide 3, what I've done here is I've shown you that the what this will do for us is we will have a total of not quite 48 million, but they rounded it up to 48 million. And the 40, we would only then have to borrow 45 million from the SRF loan. When they sell the bonds, we will only need 45 million. And we've already been with this action this evening, they will give us 3 million from what they call the Green Project Reserve Loan Program. So that's what we want you to do tonight, is to approve this loan in addition to the loan that you've already approved. They do have this money. It's actually federal money. It's guaranteed at 1.5%. If by, and they're very sure it's not going to, if at the end of the project, we did not qualify for the green portion of the project, then they would still give us the money, but it would be at a guaranteed of 2.25%. Again, they said this is not going to, we are going to qualify for the green portion of this project. So I'm going to keep going. I think that's about it. So again, the state will reimburse the town for the costs as we submit the requests. So every time we submit money, we submit the payments, they will reimburse us for the payments. They will actually take the proceeds from the SRF loan first, and then they will go into the green loan after, at the end of the project. The state asked for two separate ordinances from us. And it's the same people, it's the same, group of people and everything. It's just that they follow it that way in terms of how they loan money. So we're asking you to adopt this ordinance.
Okay, questions this side? Straightforward, this way.
Well, the language of this thing is pretty much the same as the last one, and I wouldn't to say that the language in here is particularly straightforward, but it seems very similar. I'm comfortable with it.
I would agree with that.
I might not understand every bit of it, but I'm comfortable with it.
Mhm.
Trustee Kenny, you're good? Trustee.
I got a question here.
Okay.
On Exhibit B and the estimated cost of the project, so that's page 373 of the packet.
Okay.
It says estimated cost of the project is $56,213,985.
That was a roundup from the state. And so, yeah, we'll be taking that down. Okay. But that's just what they did. They did that from a piece of paper that they got from DOLA, and it just kept following through.
Okay.
And so, yes.
There's just there's
no.
$9 million I don't know about.
No.
Okay. And so just to clarify, because I know the costs that we approved with the loan, there was a portion of that as a contingency. So in essence, as long as the project actually comes in on budget, we would actually never use these funds. Is that correct?
No, we'll use these funds to offset the first loan.
Final cost.
Yeah, the final cost will be 47 million. Well, 40, I rounded it to 48.
45.
Yes, we would use 45 million from the SRF loan and 3 million from this loan. So we would actually lower the amount of money that we're taking from the SRF loan.
But am I correct that the 45 million that we're expecting to spend includes that 10% contingency of the project?
Yes.
So if we don't use that 10% contingency, the cost of the project is really only 41 million if we are on budget, roughly, because that 10% contingent at 45 is roughly 4 something.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. So if we were to actually come on budget, we would use the 45 from the SRF, and then this money would that just be given back to them because we'd never actually tap that because we never went past 45.
I apologize. I would not want to say with confidence the answer to that question, but I will get back to you.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
that deserves
So,
an answer.
yes.
I don't see it that
Yes,
way.
I understand.
I think it's
that.
going to be 3 million out the final cost.
Yeah, I think I believe that is the way it is, that we will get the 3 million, whatever the total cost is, the 3 million is in the pot, if you will, at 1.5% interest. So if we only spend 41, I mean.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where I was at because it's like, if
Good
that's, so if
question.
you
I
could find out and let
apologize.
us know, that would be good. And then
I will.
also,
Apologize
if
for
you
that.
could provide for that, if it is the case where they say, well, your SRF covered everything you spent, what is the does it just give it back to them, or could you just clarify what?
Oh, we did clarify that as a matter of fact. We did talk about that for a long time with them. If we don't use all the first loan, that what happens is they actually use that to offset our payments, is what they do.
Okay.
So they still give it to us, but they give it to us as payments against the loan. We had a long discussion about that.
Got it. Okay, so that would address the concern, because if we came in under budget, we wouldn't use all the SRF. and
Right.
that would be-
You
okay.
wouldn't, yep.
Thank you very much. Those are the only questions I had.
Good. I think it's a good program. All right. So no other questions. We'll open it up for public comment. If you want to come up and ask a question about this, how we're going to apply this loan, it's a good time.
Sherelle Teets, 4525 Ingalls Drive. I would say my only question is I can't remember what the percentage rate on interest was on the SLP loan. So SRF loan. So what was that interest rate compared to what the 1.5, or if it's not green, 2.25? That's my only question.
Okay, thanks. Is that an easy one?
Yeah. Yes, it is. The interest rate actually has not been set yet. The ordinance stated that because the bonds haven't been sold yet. And so we don't know what the final interest rate will be. What we did state is that we would not be willing to pay any more than 2.5%. That's what the ordinance says.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Kathy White-Dallas, Revere Clerk. This is probably not a problem because this is a loan, not a grant. But I've found grants always come with strings attached. And if they've got green in the title of it, there's even more strings. And so I was wondering, is there any sort of thing that we have to, buy all electric vehicles by 2030 or something like that to get this loan? And why would a wastewater plant not be considered green?
By definition, it is considered green. And I mean, you've got the point. And no, we don't have to agree to anything additional to make it green. By definition, they do think that yeah. And so that's, I mean, that's why they're saying it's a $3 million.
Two good answers. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, bring it back to the board for any final comments and a motion to approve. Yeah, someone else want to
Yeah, I can take this one. And then one thing I did want to point out is there are things like the Davis-Bacon wages and all that that are added in with that, but we're already required to have those because we're taking the SRF loan. So had we not been doing the SRF loan, those would have added to the cost, but we already had those calculated in because of how we were doing the other loans. So I would like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 6-2022, an ordinance of the town of Wellington, Colorado, acting by and through the town wastewater enterprise, approving a green project reserve loan from Colorado Water Resource and Power Development Authority to finance wastewater related improvements, authorizing the execution of a loan agreement and a bond to document the loan, and providing for payment of the bond from net revenue of the wastewater system.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Kinney,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay. Nice job, Vic. Thank you. All right, I got 8:04. We're going to close the regular meeting at this time and open up our liquor license authority to check out a new liquor license renewal. To do that, we're going to need a roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Here.
trustee Jerome, trustee Kinney,
Present.
trustee McDonald,
Here.
trustee Whitehouse,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Here.
Mayor Hammond.
Here. Okay. First one that we're going to talk to about is the annual renewal of Ridley's Family Market liquor license. Krystal, want to tell us all about it?
So thank you, Mayor and trustees. Krystal, Eucker, Town Clerk. Ridley's has submitted their annual renewal for their liquor store liquor license. A review of the application found the establishment is a good standing with the Colorado Secretary of State. They are current with their sales tax. Larimer County Sheriff's Office reported no issues directly related to their liquor license, and there were no issues on a visual inspection of the premise.
So no hiccups, all ready to go, standard SOP. Any questions then? No, sir. Nothing here. I'll get offered up to the public. Any public comment on renewing this liquor license for Ridley's? No, okay, it's pretty standard. We'll bring it back for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the annual liquor license renewal for Ridley's Family Markets Incorporated.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Kinney,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes, okay, and now I got 8:05. Can I get a motion to adjourn the liquor portion of this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Kinney,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes, all right, we'll continue on with our regular meeting. Now we're into reports, town attorney, anything?
Just a brief update, municipal court for the town of Wellington will be changing the date that it's regularly held to, I believe, the second Wednesday of the month at 1 p.m. So we'll have that posted on the website and I'll post it everywhere where we talk about municipal court, but otherwise I have no updates.
Okay.
Just had a quick question on the change from municipal court. Are we concerned? I don't know what that's like for residents. I know a lot of people work generally during the day. Was that more of an issue having it at evening, or what was kind of the thought process on moving it from an evening time to a middle of the day?
It was a discussion that started from our municipal judge. Yes, a lot of people do work during the day, but most municipal courts around the area are day courts. And actually Wellington's has been one of the only night courts in northern Colorado that we know of. So it was more just to move it to more of a standard time.
Okay, yeah. You got something for us, town administrator?
You betcha. So back when I first took the job, I promised you all that I would keep you all in the loop as to work that I'm doing and projects I'm working on for various if there's one-off, ideas that, some of you have. So one of the things I've been working on lately is working with Rebecca, Trustee Kinney. She's been looking at community centers. So we're setting up some meetings for her to go visit Johnstown, which is a partnership with the YMCA. That's how they do their recreation center. The town of Eaton, who is a recreation district, and then the town of Berthoud, which was a town-funded financed recreation center. So wanted to let everybody know that I was working on that with Rebecca, or Trustee Kinney, sorry. And with Trustee Gator, been working with him on working with the Hispanic community. And out of those discussions, we're working on some transportation ideas, working on a pilot program that Trustee Gator's talked about a little bit, but I'm trying to help assist that and be that staff relation when talking to the city of Fort Collins and things like that, trying to figure out where we can do drop-offs and pickups and things like that. The other thing that Trustee Gator has requested is a letter to Larimer County requesting Larimer County engineers. This is based off of the meeting that we had with Commissioner Kafalis, asking for what I always phrase this incorrectly because I even did it last night. I knew exactly what I was looking for, but essentially looking for information from them. What do they need from us in order to proceed with this project? And Trustee Gator will talk about that here in a little bit, but I'm done with my report, and I know that I have a staff report. Bob Gowing will be coming up and doing a staff report on those discussions and that project and specifically.
All right, well, we're excited about those two things anyway. They're pretty important, so keep us informed. Let us know how other trustees can help.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll move on to staff reports. Bob.
Looks like we're gonna have Cody too.
Okay.
It's the team. I like it.
We are going to tag team this a little bit, but with all the discussion about the roundabout, the intersection of 62E and 9, we did want to provide a brief update on some things that happened just last week relative to that project. And I'm going to let Cody give you a little bit of history on how we got here first.
A little bit of history. How far back can I go? I started here in 2017. No, in all seriousness, this has been an ongoing discussion and project. It was one of the first things that was identified when we started meeting with PSD and their staff was the concerns with safety at these intersections. There was actually a recommendation at one of our very first meetings by CDOT to consider a roundabout option and realigning the highway to facilitate safety movements at these intersections. We've approached this project from a lot of different angles, including a ballot initiative that the county put forth in 2019 for sales tax for regional transportation projects. It was our #1 project that we had on that list. That ballot initiative didn't pass, but we continued to look for other funding sources for this project to improve the intersections here. We pursued and were granted funding from our town board to do a conceptual design alignment. We looked at 3 options. The preferred alternative was a roundabout option. We took that to our regional partners, the county, the state, and school district, and they all agreed that was a good path forward. And with that direction, staff pursued obtaining a grant called Congestion Mitigation Air Quality. That's a CMAQ, we'll call it for short. Those CMAQ funds, the town was awarded $710,000 to pursue the roundabout project at this intersection, which would meet the congestion mitigation air quality requirements. And after pursuing that grant and finding out that our costs had climbed to a number of other projects, the decision by the town was that needed to take a back burner to other higher priorities for water and wastewater. And ultimately finding that we didn't have enough funds in-house to take the project on full cost. We worked with our other regional partners and we found that in the spirit of regional collaboration, Estes Park is working on a similar project for a roundabout at Highway 36 and Community Drive, and they were only about $900,000 short of meeting their goals. So we actually offered to exchange those CMAQ funds to allow Estes Park to advance their project, and in return, CDOT is working with us to help utilize other funding streams in CDOT's They've got several kind of buckets of money, if you will, for different highway projects, and they're working with us to advance our project at this intersection. Most recently, just last week, at the Transportation Planning Region meeting, we were informed by CDOT that they were going to advance up to $4 million of CDOT funds to pursue final design for this project and advance construction beginning as early as this July, and then construction to follow. There's still quite a bit of work to do. There's still logistics to figure out, but the collaboration with CDOT and Larimer County and our other regional partners is really encouraging to help us advance a project that we know is a needed intersection improvement here at our important highway.
So there's a few steps for this to become approved and finalized. In general, the state has to take all of their program and run it through a greenhouse gas model and make sure that they meet federal standards along those lines. That's upcoming. It has to go to the STAC and ultimately to the Transportation Commission for approval. That's currently scheduled for July. So these funds are in the next 4 years of the current 10-year plan. And so we're being told the money would become available potentially in July to begin design on that project. Because this becomes now a CDOT project, they like the roundabout idea. This was originally their idea, as Cody pointed out earlier, but it could change. We'll be working closely with them throughout the project, but it is a CDOT project that we're now in partnership with them on. So there you have it. It's not approved yet, but it certainly looks good.
Well, we're very encouraged with the movement on the financing end of this. It was hitting a brick wall there for a couple of years. I'm encouraged that you're moving forward. Now, yeah, you heard some concerns tonight about the farming community and all this stuff. Okay, so the county's involved too. I would think that we would take all that into consideration.
It'll absolutely be taken into consideration with all other design factors in accordance with CDOT design standards. Yeah.
Question, guys? Okay.
So before the meeting, I had a question for Mr. Gowing regarding at that intersection where some sort of improvement, which sounds like it might be right roundabout, but we really don't know. There was some question as to whose roads are there. Could you clarify that? Because there's multiple, some of them are town, some of them are state, and some of them are county. It gets kind of muddled up there.
Yes, I could. So the curve itself is obviously Highway 1. It's CDOT jurisdiction. The two short legs that come off of Highway 1 and meet at the intersection of 62E and County Road 9, those two pieces of those are still county roads. So they're in the jurisdiction of Larimer County. We have annexed and assumed responsibility for County Road 9 north of 62E and 62E west of County Road 9. So this is part of the reason why this was such a tough nut to crack, was because we have 3 different jurisdictions right here. And right now, certainly CDOT has stepped up and initially committed $4 million to the project.
That's great news to hear, but yeah, it is kind of a muddle of overlay. So they're not all our roads. They're not all the county's roads. They're not all the state's roads, but we got to work it all out and figure it out. So and I didn't know this before I asked you that question. So I was like, yeah, whatever.
I wanted to express my gratitude. I know that the only reason why we've had the progress we've had this far is from the initiative of our staff here and promoting the idea of doing that conceptual design. It's kind of like everybody knew that intersection's a problem, but who's going to take the big leap to get it started? And the town of Wellington owned that at the recommendation of the staff to do the conceptual design to get the ball rolling. And I think that initiative and the board's commitment to fund that shows our community how much that how much that safety is so important to us regarding the new high school, middle school. So I wanted to say thank you for that. Also, given there are so many parties involved, I also wanted to express my gratitude for the tact and skill of our staff to ensure that we're working well with all these parties. And that we're making this progress. $4 million is no joke. And that, in addition to the commitment from PSD, ensuring that was included as well. So I just want to say thank you so much. The final design and those kind of things, I know those are coming, and there's a lot of concerns and questions. So there will no doubt be more information and more opportunities to discuss that. But to get to where we are right now is a true testament of the valuable staff that we have, and how well they are playing with all of our partners, which is a big part of our strategic plan. So I wanted to thank you guys for doing that.
Yes, the only thoughts I had on this is good. Thank you for the update. I appreciate that. I'll come back to other stuff later. The only things that I would add to that is just as we kind of figure out what this is going to look like. Obviously, this goes from initially it was like the town of Wellington's pushing this project, trying to convince everyone else to come in. That changes when we're now partnering with CDOT, but really figuring out what does that look like in terms of what is our role? And then I think what might be beneficial is trying to set up, I know there have been a lot of, I mean, this has been a consistent thing with the commissioner meetings of these concerns from the ag community about that turning into a roundabout. I think I've heard this 4 or 5 times over the last 6 months brought up. Is maybe we can work out something where we do like a joint work session, whether we have like the town, the ag community, the commissioners, or at least the engineering staff from the county. If CDOT can send someone, that would be wonderful, so that we can actually sit there and actually talk about what are those concerns. And I think, you know, yes, obviously the farmers are outside in Lambert County, but as we've kind of, again, we've been the ones to start this project and say, looking at this, to bring those partners in. And the other thing too, is I know with where this is projected, I think that's probably going to have some impact on River of Life with their property potentially. So they should probably be included in that as well, to make sure that as we're exploring these ideas, no one that's really involved in this is being left out. So I think that would be my ask, is that we maybe try to come up with a time once we have a better idea of what that's going to look like, to bring some of these partners together so that we can really say, okay, here are all the pieces that we need to look at with that.
Okay. This side. Nothing? Final thoughts?
Oh, no, I've got mine for other.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Look forward to seeing the progress down the road. I know it's a lot of work, but good steps forward. Appreciate it. Okay, no more board reports. Oh,
no, we
no
haven't
more
done
staff
board
reports.
Yeah, we haven't done board reports yet.
Board reports.
I was waiting.
All right. We're on to board reports. We'll start this side. You're up.
I just wanted to thank the community that came out and spoke on behalf of the ag community. Wellington was founded on our ag community, and it's extremely important to keep them in mind when we're developing not just our land use code, but also that Highway 1 intersection, so that we can make sure that we're not leaving them out. I think that's extremely important. They're part of the culture and the value. I think that's one of the things that took away from Loveland being a small town and a small community, was when the ag portion started to be pushed out into the county. And I think we've absorbed some of that feel, and I'd like to keep that and try and accommodate that how we can in the land use code in that Highway 1 intersection.
Agree.
That's it.
Yep. Thanks for bringing it up. No, we're not going to lose sight of our county folks. Anything?
No, sir.
Trustee King, anything?
I need to hear John's, Trustee Gator's report probably before I contribute mine.
Okay.
His is more, mine's pertinent to his.
His report, Trustee Gator.
Sure, I'll start with the easy part first, which was a letter that Patty was speaking to it. So at the meeting with the commissioners on last Thursday, I was trying to speak with John, but he left. So I ended up speaking with Mark, who was in the engineering, and really was kind of pushing on this roundabout project. And like, what I was looking for is, what does the county needs to see from us to actually commit to being involved in the project? And so that was the request of, could we have a letter sent to them just saying, from the county standpoint, to say, you know, we've already had the school district partner. Now I'm hearing that CDOT's going to partner. That's great. But just hearing from the county, what do you guys need to say to actually be willing to say, hey, we'll step in and contribute a portion to this? And I know Mark brought up things like, well, why weren't these 2 legs annexed into the town? It could be, I mean, And I think it would just be helpful for us to actually know what is the county looking at to try and come in and partner with that. And so that was just kind of what I was looking for, is just to have something. I understand they can't commit to it without knowing a final design, but knowing what would you need to see from us so that we can really work to make sure, whether it's stuff from CDOT or stuff that we put together, that we kind of have that together. And so that was kind of the request on the letter there, is just to help get some clarity. My goal is I want to bring this to close. I want to get it closed up. If county is going to be involved, I think it'd be great. They've said they want to be. I just want to make sure that we get there. So that was that piece. The other piece I did want to bring up was from the CAC meeting. So the CAC did approve doing the festival down at Wellington Community Park. So that would be the same as last year. One of the concerns that was brought up multiple times, there were several concerns brought up in the meeting. There were concerns brought up from businesses about moving the festival period and not having it downtown. There were concerns brought up by LCSO as well as the fire district, just about some of the concerns with, we can do it in the downtown, but we'd have to shrink everything down just because there's so many people that show up. So there were safety concerns about the festival being there. And then there were also people that brought up concerns that one of the issues last year was with having the parade on Main Street and the festival down at the park, is it was so spread out. It was hot, people having to walk, people not being able to get parking, etc. And so the request was, could you just keep the two of them together, whether it's all downtown or whether it's moved, could you try to keep the two of those together? And so what the CAC ended on was, I think 4 or 5 different options were given as far as locations for the festival. They did decide on Wellington Community Park. And then one of the questions that they had was, do we look at what are some options for changing the parade? Do we leave the parade where it is, or do we look at moving that? I know in the past, the board has kind of said, let the CAC decide things, but I also know the parade is a very big deal for the town. So I did lay out the expectation to them is that I am going to go to the Board of Trustees and say, do you want board override on this? Because I know the parade is a big deal. So that's something that they understand. And if this board really chooses to say, no, please leave the parade on Cleveland, I'm happy to go back to them. If you guys want the CAC to go through and kind of consider that, I'm happy to have that, or if you want them to give a recommendation to this board. But I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update on that. There were concerns on all sides. There are concerns about moving the parade off Cleveland because that's a huge impact on the downtown businesses. And that was heard. I know several people were pushing to have everything happen in downtown because it hurt the businesses last year, but ultimately the board did choose to move to Wellington Community Park. So wanted to, I know I've spoken with the mayor a little bit about this, but want to kind of get an idea from the rest of the board. Do you want me to come back to the CAC and pretty much just say, the board has said we want the parade to remain on Cleveland and that could just be the end of it? Or do you want them to continue pursuing? Because right now the options that are being proposed to look at is keep it on Cleveland, reverse it on Cleveland. So start at the east side and then go across and then kind of down towards Wellington Community Park. One was to move it down 3rd Street and another was to move it down, I think it's Washington, whatever the street is that comes across into Wellington Community Park down there. Those are kind of the options that were presented to be considered.
I have a quick question for you, John.
Sure.
Procedurally, have you guys submitted or has the CAC applied for their special event permit yet?
I don't believe so because they literally just decided on the location last Thursday.
Okay.
So they haven't done that. They have already put together an application for the parade that considered the downtown Cleveland, the normal route. So if they were to change it, they would actually have to go back, redo the application and change that because they had already anticipated doing that downtown, but then with concerns brought to them by members of the community about having things spread out, they're going back and reconsidering should that be changed.
That's good. I'm glad they paused on that process until a decision was made.
Yep.
You good? You want to poll the board? Is that what you're looking to do?
Yeah, I guess so. If you guys have one way or the other, I'd love to get you guys' thoughts just so I know what to go back to them with.
Well, I have a question before. I mean, I would suggest this event is the biggest thing we put on. And I think the trustees would need to weigh in about doing something as major as changing the parade route.
Well, yeah, right.
Okay.
Right now. That's what we're polling right now.
Okay.
Go ahead. Trustee Kenny, what do you think? Your thoughts on it?
The parade belongs downtown. I mean, we're small America, USA, where parades occur on Main Street. So I have some comments on the business input as well, but in my mind, the culture of our town, everything I've heard from all the feedback on comprehensive plan, everything, the vision of the town that the people want from multiple surveys is they want that feel of their small town America in if you ask someone, I say this so often, but it's always worth mentioning. If you pull anybody in the street of what Wellington's about, what it's like to live here, they will say 4th of July. They will say the parade, they will say the festivities. And that's how they envision and they see our town. So taking that away from our main street is a completely different vision. And I can say this with confidence based on the fact that following the CAC meeting, I woke up to, on various reasons and issues associated with the CAC meeting, over 100 messages from residents and businesses with very significant concerns with the discussions that occurred at the CAC and the risk of losing the parade downtown. So that's my first point on it regarding just our culture and where I think the parade belongs, backed by a lot of feedback. The second part of it is the festivities at Community Park. Following the parade, we could have called our beautiful downtown, that is the vision of what people love about our town, a ghost town. It turned into a ghost town. The only people who were there were the folks that were working, essentially. And then some of their patrons who refused to participate in our normal 4th of July events, essentially because it was moved away from downtown and typical what they expected of that event and the experience that they thought it meant to Wellington. It was devastating. That is the biggest revenue day for the majority of those businesses. It was devastating. So that has a ton of concerns. Now, with the decisions that have been made this year regarding the festivities again occurring at Community Park, I think that's been acknowledged that that's something that is likely going to happen, and that was the decision of the CAC. But there are significant ways that we can still protect our downtown businesses. And the cool thing is that those businesses on Main Street, they're not just our businesses. The majority, of course, of our businesses are on Main Street that are services or restaurants or bars or anything like that. But this is also a collective groups of individuals who serve on town boards, who are very involved in Main Streets. These are movers and shakers of our community. They're the ones behind every event that occurs essentially outside of the CAC. They are brilliant. So my ask is, in consideration of those businesses, of course, and them driving sales tax and serving our community in the way that they envision our community, I want to make sure that we take their considerations to heart. Things like the scheduling of the day alone, shuttle services, potentially moving the beer garden downtown. They have so much input and so much expertise. I mean, this is the same group, several of them put on our Brew Fest. So there is so much expertise there. I would hope that the CAC would consider every single one of their suggestions, because I don't see why we can't accommodate all of their needs and suggestions and also do the event that you guys are planning at the community park as well. So that's my feedback on it. I've been in contact with about 11 businesses ongoing since that CAC meeting with these pleas and ongoing suggestions and just brilliant ideas how to make this work for everyone. So that's my suggestion, but the parade needs to belong, it belongs on Main Street. So that's my feedback on that one.
Okay, thank you, Trustee White House.
Keep it on Main Street.
This side, Trustee McDonald. Thoughts?
I would agree. I think that the parade belongs on Main Street. I've served on the CAC and I've been a part of the parade planning and the 4th of July planning. And it has taken many, many years for that dedicated group of volunteers to refine a safe route for that parade. So I am 110% in support of keeping the parade route exactly like it is, but keeping it safe.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I agree. It's historic to keep it on Main Street, and the route's been proven. Everybody knows where to go to see it, and I think we should leave it there.
Final thought here. Hey. Yeah, it's tradition downtown. I would never ask to move it, not until we really outgrow the thing. It's great last year. I do want to echo a little bit what she said. You know, it did turn into a ghost town. We still got Centennial Park. We could plan a few things down there. It doesn't have to be everything. And then also you could, you know, delay this a little hour before all that starts and help try to make this all happen. Because I think Community Park last year was great. I liked it. Okay. I think it's a great place to have it. We're too big for anything else, but we still got this park downtown that could do things. So there's more to be worked with there. I don't think we need to abandon downtown. I think we're big to do both of it. So I'd like to pursue all that.
Okay, no, absolutely. So I will go ahead and I know the chair and vice chair of the CAC are both sitting here in the room, so they have heard that feedback, but I will get an email out to Hallie for the CAC to let them know the board's direction on that. And then I did also want to address, because I know that there have been a lot of concerns brought up, and I do want to make sure that this board understands, you know, having sat in the meeting, having spoken with every one of the members on the CAC, they are in no way trying to downplay or take away from the businesses in downtown. They are truly trying to figure out what needs to be done to provide the best 4th of July. Because yes, it's a great day for the businesses, and not to take anything away from that. And I brought this up in the CAC meeting. We don't do the 4th of July festivities for the vendors. We don't do it for the businesses. We do it for the residents of the town. Now, it's a great boon to our businesses. It's a great boon to vendors. But the sole purpose of that is really to provide a great event for our residents. And I think that I know people were concerned that they would even consider moving it off of the main street. But the thing is they had multiple people come to them and say, we have a concern about this being separated out. And I think it's important that any government entity ask the questions. And now sometimes the answer is no, we shouldn't do it. But I think it's important that that question be asked. So I do want to make sure that, because I know I've heard people say, oh, the CSC just hates. No, they don't. I've talked to the people, I've been in the discussions, and I think that I have no problem speaking for the CAC that they want to look at what can we do. And they said, whatever we end up with, we're going to try and figure out how do we make that work. I know one of the things that we're in conversation with right now is figuring out, because initially with the beer garden, the contract is having the two events together, is to figure out, can we amend that contract? Because the beer garden said we'd have no problem going to Centennial Park. And so we could have the beer garden happening at Centennial Park. They're right there next to the businesses, and those go together really great. We can have the festivities down at the community park. So I don't think there is any concern with looking at ways to try and make that work for everyone. And they would love to incorporate those downtown businesses. And I think one of the things that was brought up as well is we have other businesses on the south side of town. That was one of the ideas that was brought up. Do we look at a festival on the south side of town? Because those businesses, we've got Sparge and a bunch of other businesses there that really, they don't get to participate in a lot of that because they're not in the downtown. So they really are trying to look at how can we work with people. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear as well.
I would encourage him to keep looking, John. I like it all. It's a lot there to do. So just keep it up, what you guys are doing. I think you heard the will of the board.
Yep, I do. I got it very clear. I'll get that out. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Any other board reports?
Yeah, I have some.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up to that as well, it's known, and I was just reminded that a town that has a thriving downtown, that's not just beneficial for them, it's beneficial for the entire town. So I think that's important. But a concern I do have is last year when the festivities were moved, there was outcry and there was concern and question. So, but the best way to really understand that is really to, talk and engage with those businesses. Because I could tell you, I think a beer garden downtown is great, but if that's taking business away from those during peak times of dinner, that's not actually helping them. So I just want to make sure that they're involved in that process. The other thing I wanted to talk about was I am not a favor of us drafting a letter to the county regarding that intersection. I think our staff has proven that they've done an incredible job with negotiations up to this point. And I am not an engineer. I know, Commissioner, no, sorry, Trustee Knutson is, but I don't have those skills. And I would never want to impose on that process of professionals working through those negotiations. So I don't think that we should interfere. I think that is a position of staff, and they have proven to be doing a very incredible job of that thus far. So that would be my suggestion on that. I'm not comfortable with that on behalf of the entire board. The third thing I wanted to say, and I was asked to talk about this again and bring it up, because some people wanted some more information. So recently I was invited and got to participate on a panel at CSU. entitled Local Press and Civic Ecosystems. The reason why we're invited and that we got to participate, well, not necessarily the reason, but what's been uncovered. I've learned so much through this process, more than I probably contributed, but is that we are very fortunate to have some amazing resources in our community. The one that was highlighted was the North 40 as a regional newspaper that adds an ability to have accountability to local government, which a lot of smaller communities are losing their newspapers, right? So they don't have that choice. And then the other piece is that we have a very vibrant and active library system here that's encouraging young folks and adults alike to write and be involved as well and to report out on it. I don't know if you guys knew, but they did last summer, they did a youth broadcast program where my kid interviewed a bunch of people and was supposed to write an article, but never did. But she was just really big on the interviewing part. She was 7 at the time, but it was really cool. She had a press pass and was told she had access to everyone, which everybody loved talking to her. So it was wonderful. And then we have other resources, including a very active Main Street program and Chamber of Commerce that all build up this ecosystem that everybody communicates and shares knowledge in a way together that other towns don't have. So I got to display and talk about that and learn about why that's so important with this panel. And what they're noticing through the study that they did at CSU is that towns that don't have this ability and these tools available to them suddenly lose that accountability, and those towns are then infiltrated and then impacted by national politics rather than items that are just relating to that community alone and the accountability for that local government, which causes a lot of divisiveness from what they were seeing, and in my mind, not necessarily something that's best for the community. So for example, our board does not run for our seats based on any political party. And that is intentional, of course. So that was something that they showed in their study, is without that communication, without this mesh of ecosystem of press, essentially, with a civic ecosystem, a lot of values and interests enter small towns that have no business being there. So as soon as that's available, it's going to be available on YouTube. I'll share it. And it was really valuable. It was with Boston University and CSU. I feel very privileged to be involved. So I'll share that more once I have more information.
Thank you for that, both of you. Anything else?
Shout out to the middle school. They just concluded their wrestling season and girls basketball too. So yay to them. I don't know how they did. Are you wrestling coach? Anybody know how wrestling did? I think they went to state second. Kudos to them.
I went and watched a couple of them. It was very exciting. So
girls basketball did
very
not do
nice.
so well, but they gave it their heart. They gave it their all.
So
okay.
Before you close, just a minute, please.
Man,
I had a request from Trustee Gator for the letter. I've had a request from Trustee Kinney to not do the letter. So I need some direction because I work for all of you.
Start on this end.
Remind me of what we're requesting in this letter.
Basically, the only request I have is
Hold on, a point of order. Was that question asked of staff or was that question asked of?
I would prefer Trustee Gator to answer that
Okay.
question, please, because it was his request. Thank you.
So I guess all I'm asking is just to find out from the county basically what they need to see if they were to participate in the project, what they would need to see from us or CDOT or whoever, just so we kind of have clear goalposts to shoot for. That's all I'm asking for.
I don't really know what the project is yet,
That is correct.
so I'm not sure how we word it.
That's part of, and again, I guess from my standpoint is I understand we don't, and again, this keeps changing because this, as of this conversation we had on Thursday, this wasn't a CDOT project. This was a Town of Wellington project. So I don't know what changes come in with that being a CDOT project, but it's not necessarily, I'm not asking for them to say, if you do X, Y, and Z, we will commit $3 million, but basically for them to come back and say, okay, we need you to have a site plan. We need you to, because some things like that, they might say, well, we need to know exactly how much it's going to cost, exactly what you're going to do. They might also be adding in, we want you to annex these 2 streets, these 2 roads in here that we still currently own. Basically, I just want to find out what are they going to be looking for from us as a town for them to even consider participating in this project. And I understand that we don't have the specifics on that. So I'm not asking them to like give a specific letter, but just in general, what are you as a county going to be looking for so that we as a town know what we need to be focusing in on as our staff is working through this?
Probably a little premature for that type of.
Through a lot of that groundwork, and we can report back to you now that we have a better idea of where the funding is coming from. But
I would agree. I think it would be nice to see a letter of support, but I think we're still too early in the game to come to the table with any kind of like viable idea or good game plan.
Who's writing this letter?
it would be staff on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
I don't see how we're involved in this at all. I mean, we've got competent engineering who's been working with these people for a while. I mean, you know, I've been in construction for almost 30 years, and I can tell you I don't know anything about road construction. I know about house construction. I don't know about working with the feds, with the state, with the county. I think we're out of our lane to be engaging directly. I think personally as a trustee, if we're trying to engage directly with county staff, I mean, what are we doing? Are we micromanaging? I don't know. I don't see that as appropriate.
I'd like to address that because I was the one that made this request. When I started this conversation, it was intended for Commissioner Kafalis, who walked away in the middle. So as one elected official, I was engaging with another elected official. His county engineer then continued the conversation with me. And as I was asking him what they would need to see, Patty brought up the good point that that would need to go through the town or county manager would be the appropriate path. So this started as a conversation because really I'd like that for the commissioners, because ultimately the town engineer is not the one who holds the purse strings, it's the commissioners. Unfortunately, the commissioner had walked away in the middle of the conversation to take a phone call. So in terms of that, it was one elected official of a municipality talking to the elected official from, which is absolutely appropriate for us as elected officials to be talking to each other about, here's things that we're working on here, priorities for us. What would you guys need to see from that? And from the next steps that I was talked about would be maybe appropriate was to send a request for a letter to them to put together, because ultimately staff is going to tell the commissioners, this is what we need to see to be able to really recommend this to you. So that's how this came about.
Yeah, a big fear of mine is the tone is a concern. It almost, without even knowing the details or what the request is and what the project is, it feels like a strong arm tone of, I was at the meeting, so I got to see the conversation, and it wasn't friendly or productive necessarily. And I think that's not the right direction to be working with our partners. I think the direction we should go is through the negotiations where we've been really successful so far. I think our board coming and saying in this direction and knowing the tone that was set and then following with this letter, I think that's just a really not tactful move. So that's my feedback.
So I'm going to make a recommendation that as we move forward, we keep you in the loop. And I think then there's a letter from the trustees to the Larimer County commissioners, and then we can each work. Then I can work with my team, and the commissioners can work with Linda Hoffman or whoever is appointed at that point in time on how that funding structure looks. But I think that would be a more appropriate way to go, perhaps.
Okay,
if
wait,
that
I'm
keeps
sorry,
everyone
Patty.
amenable.
All I heard is you say that you're going to write a letter. Would you please repeat to me what you said you're going to?
So I think in the future, so not right now. Once we get some more information from CDOT, once we have more of perhaps, you know, a schedule for design and things like that, that perhaps a letter get written on behalf of the Board of Trustees to the Larimer County Commissioners asking that question. Or, you know, how are you planning on partnering with us or something like that? I haven't quite formulated it in my mind yet, but I think a request to the county commissioners from the Board of Trustees would be appropriate as far as requesting support for funding or support for the project.
Maybe even just open to a conversation in the future, like a work session. Maybe that would be a better opportunity.
Simple, yeah.
Instead of demanding in a letter that we have a pledge for them to contribute in a project, we ask for them to sit at the table with us and have a work session as a group.
Right. It's a lot on perspective, or not perspective. Is that the word I want? Perception.
Perception. Yeah.
That's the word I
would
wanted.
agree.
Perception. So.
Okay. Thank you, Patty. Thank you for the
Mind
clarification.
if I give a final thought?
Please.
we've heard from county people, they need to be talked about, that the county, farmers are involved here, right? So it's an important part of this whole thing. I would hate to be speaking for them. The county needs to come in somehow, some way, and that needs to be brought up. And I don't want them to skirt that, these commissioners. That's a pretty big deal for them to come in, but leave this all up to us to handle. Anyway, yeah, you're premature. We don't even know what we're building yet. All right, nothing else?
Make her so.
Thank you very much. I got 8:47. I'd like the motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See ya.